evening, everybody. I hope that you're having a wonderful Tuesday evening. My name is Stephanie. I'm the director of events for the Novel Neighbor / Open Door Romance at the Novel Neighbor. We are an independently owned and woman-operated bookstore located in St. Louis, Missouri. And for those of you who are in Missouri right now, you know that we're kind of all preparing for a snowstorm tomorrow morning. So this is honestly hosting a virtual event tonight. It's kind of setting the perfect tone for what is hopefully a snow day for many of us. So, and if you are like, what do I read during the snow day? We have some great suggestions for you tonight because we are celebrating two incredible authors and one author's book birthday. Today is her launch day, so we'll get to hear all about her books. These two have been so fun to chat with. I mean, Sophie, we've known for a while now, and we just absolutely love her. And she has brought Melissa into this conversation, and so we're super excited. They are so fun to chat with. I just got to chat with them in the green room a little bit, and so I know that we're in for some real treats. Throughout the event, please feel free to ask any questions that you have. If they're talking about something and you're like, I need to know more about that, just drop a comment in the chat at the bottom of whatever platform you're watching on, and I will pass those questions along and make sure that we get to them. So our conversation partner this evening is Melissa Wiesner. She, like I said, absolutely incredible. She's a mother. Melissa Wiesner's mother didn't allow her to watch TV much as a child and instead made her play with paint, colorful pipe cleaners, random bits of fabric, and all manner of other crafty things. This set Melissa up for a lifetime of creative pursuits, and it was only a matter of time before things took a bookish turn. A night owl, Melissa began writing novels when her early-to-bed family retired for the evening. She is the award-winning author of contemporary romantic comedies and emotional women's fiction. Her work has earned praise from Kirkus, Booklist, Library Journal, and Publishers Weekly, and has been featured in Women's World, The Knot, and Book of the Month. Melissa's novels will soon be translated into over a dozen languages. Along with her husband and two adorable children, she splits her time between the big city of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and rural West Virginia. And then celebrating this evening, we are celebrating the incredible Sophie Sullivan, who is an award-winning Canadian author of many romantic comedies, including 10 Rules for Faking It and How to Love Your Neighbor, both of which won the Canadian Book Club Award for Best Romance. Her books have been mentioned and featured in BuzzFeed, Pop Sugar, Culturess, E! Online, Cosmopolitan, and so many more. She chats about all things books, romance, and writing in a variety of places, including episode 14 of Happy to Meet Cute podcast and her local radio station, Star 98.3. In her books, you'll find relatable characters, kissing scenes, heartfelt moments, found family, and anxiety rep. And probably more kissing scenes. When she's not writing, she's usually reading, buying books, or thinking about her next trip to Disneyland and wondering how long the Alice in Wonderland lineup is. She lives on the West Coast with her husband, daughters, and dogs. She wishes she lived somewhere that it rained less, which is what a lot of free time goes into planning those Disney trips. So without any further ado, please welcome and help me welcome Melissa and Sophie. Hi, everybody.
Hi. I really need to condense my bio. So they had asked me to do a bio that included everything and give examples and stuff. And I'm like, and now it gets read all the time. And I'm like, I've gone to events and, there's other authors and they've got like 3 little lines. And then it's like, and you can listen to her on Meet Cute. I'm like, oh no, I keep forgetting to change it. So
I love it though, because I learned stuff about you by hearing your bio.
Yeah, I learned about you too. I didn't know you lived in 2 places.
Yes, sort of. Yeah, we have like a country house and a city house, basically.
I love that. I need that.
So I'm so excited to be here with you. I just want to, first of all, congratulate you on this lovely, charming, uplifting book. It's so full of so many tropes that I personally love. Second chance romance, brother's best friend, close family relationships, cinnamon roll heroes.
Yes.
So it's just such an honor to be here and to celebrate this book with you. So thank you.
I was very excited. Yeah, I was very excited to ask you. And as you know, I love your books. So I was very excited to get to chat with you.
So let's start by just having you tell us in your own words a little bit about the book. So tell us what it's about and what inspired you to write it.
Okay, so basically this book is what happens if the crush you had when you were 15 or 16 worked out exactly as you wanted it to, only with a few complications because now they're adults and they've had their own lives. So there's some, life things that get in the way. It's honestly, it's about second chances, and Jillian, our heroine, is very reluctant to trust again because she's had a really bad divorce and she's raising her daughter Ollie, and she's back home in her hometown of Smile, and it's really hard for her to open up. And so really one of the only people that could help her do that is someone who she already trusts. And Levi comes back. He had gone off and lived his dream of being a chef. He's home now and kind of realized he wants to start with the next phase of his life. And they have this history. And I think that creates this beautiful feeling, but you want to make sure it's not just nostalgia. And for them, it isn't. So it's kind of a fun thing to be able to look back at who they were and to see who they are now. And yeah, I mean, I always knew I was going to write a second book because I write in threes. So when I pitch my stories, 10 Rules had 3 books pitched. The next series had 3 books pitched. So I knew this was coming, and I knew Jilly was second. So it just became who's going to sweep her off her feet.
So yeah, I was going to ask you about that. You do write in series. And so sort of related, I saw on your social media recently that you posted an unboxing video. And it was clear in the video that your whole family was there. They were all kind of like in the background, and everybody was sort of laughing and bantering. And by the end, you were all hysterical and I was hysterical. It was so fabulous. But you obviously come from a close-knit family. And you write those kind of like always have your back families in your books. And so can you, and specifically in this series, like this is such a lovely family. And we've seen Beckett's story, we've gotten Beckett's story and Jilly's story. And can you just talk a little bit about sort of about why you love to write books like that? Oh, we're frozen.
That video, first of all, I was like, oh, well, and they're always so popular, the unboxing videos, and it just went sideways so fast. And my one daughter was like, start again. I'm like, I've already started. There's no redoing this, right? So that was a very typical evening. We just happened to catch it on film. The cool thing about
we were so lucky that you did, because
that is running on. They have to be here. They're here because they want to be, and my husband as well. We are a super close family, and we're really fortunate that the people we spend our time with as well are close friends. They are very much like family, and we have that kind of sarcastic back and forth, easygoing, and then something and anyone will step up. And I think, I grew up like that in a way. My parents were always the ones that if someone didn't have dinner or they didn't have somewhere to sleep, it was like, well, then you come here. And then, I don't love that piece as much, just because like I like my own people in my house. So I'm not so much on the strangers in the house, but I do like, our daughter's friends and things like that. If they need something, we want to give it. I like people knowing they can count on us. I like knowing I can count on others. And I think there's really something special about the people that you choose to have in your life, right? And I think that's kind of a cool thing for the siblings, is they would always be in each other's lives anyway, but now they're all at a point where they're also choosing to be. And I think that's really special. And I feel like we have a lot of friendships that, they're not related to us technically, but we feel like you could turn to them for anything. Plus, they make us laugh. So
I love the idea of found family, which is just that idea that like you have the people that you're sort of related to legally, but then there's this whole world of people out there that you choose because you love them, and they choose you just because of who you are, and it has nothing to do with how you're born or how you're who you're legally connected to. And I think it's such a beautiful concept. And I really think that comes through so lovely, like so well in your novels.
Thank you.
both
Thank
found
you.
family as well
Thank you.
as
That matters to me. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. And it is important, right? The people we surround ourselves with really matter, right? So it kind of it determines the outcome in a lot of things when you surround yourself with people who will stand by your side or not, right?
Right. No, absolutely. And I think it's really like that's why I love to read your books, because it feels sort of aspirational. Like it feels like this is possible, that you can have connections like this and people who just love you for who you are, and who are there and who have your back no matter what. And not everybody comes from a family like
I
that.
am
So
very lucky people love me. No. And I don't like my parents were not Jillian Beckett's and Grayson's parents, but I love the idea that you can build that for yourself, right? And I think you can in whatever way that you need to. And I mean that as I'm a middle school teacher, you build your little family at that age. And when you go to university, if you go to university, you build your little family there. And, it may change. We're lucky enough. We've had most of our friends for over 25 years. I'm really old. And so we've been really lucky to have that consistency. But, you build these little families, and some of them stay with you for the whole time, and some of them are just there for moments of it. And I think that's kind of what makes it special for Jillian as well, because he wasn't there for all the moments of it, but at the core, Levi knew who she was. And he still likes that person.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think about that in terms of like bringing around, so sort of like the second chance romance idea, which is that that person has seen you sort of through all these different iterations of yourself. Yeah. And they still, like back when you were a kid, when you were figuring out who you were, and as an adult, when you sort of figured out, but sometimes you're still figuring it out. And they're there for all of that. They're on board for all of those iterations of you. And I think that's something really beautiful about this book too, is that Levi is really there for all of those iterations of Jilly.
Yeah, thank you. No, I appreciate that. And it's what we want, right? It's whether it's a romantic relationship or not, we want someone who's going to accept us however we are, because otherwise you can't fully be yourself.
So Jilly's best friend, Lainey, describes her as carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. And I think that readers are going to find Jilly so relatable. So many women I know are always putting everyone else first, like their kids, their family, their work, their pets, like everybody.
It's a thing, right? It's what women do. And I don't mean that in a martyr sense at all. It's just, you feel you have a sense inside you that, okay, no, I'll take care of it. I mean, my 18-year-old could have gotten her own water, but I'm like, you're not feeling well, I'll do it. Like, it's just who we are.
Right. And you were literally on the cusp of your sort of like book launch event, but you're still looking around at your family and who needs it? What do they need? Because that's just sort of exactly like you said, what women do. And often not saying that this was you, but often at the expense of their own needs or their own happiness. And we really see that with Jilly. So can you talk a little bit about sort of your inspiration for writing her as a character, how you went about developing her?
Yeah. It's so fun when, I don't know the process with other authors, but people always ask, where do you get your characters and stuff? Well, I started with Beckett and Presley in the first book. So those were the only characters I had. And then it literally happens, like, because I can picture the moment when I was writing it, they're walking up to the lodge and there's his sister. And so, there's this sister. Who is this person? And in that first book, it was just like, okay, she's got some red hair because a redhead kid for her daughter is really cute. And it's just this really brief outline. And then the more you write that book, and this is with the series, of course, but the more you write that book, and someone always told me that when you write those secondary characters, it's to help you get to know the first characters better, right? And so, it was Jilly was this quieter version than Grayson, and she was, she had that I love my big brother, I want him happy sort of thing, teasing younger sister. So she kind of had that development started. But when I really dove into her in her own book, it does become this thing where she's a mom, and that's her most important thing. And again, I don't think that women, and it honestly, it's true of almost every woman I know, that they will do things for others before themselves. And there have been moments where, we're doing in real life where we're planning our schedule for the week, and I'm like, no, I'll cancel Pilates, I'll do this. And now my family has started saying, why are you canceling Pilates? You don't have to be the one that, and I truly don't mind at all, but you just do that. It's like, I just want to do what makes it work for everybody. And I think Jilly has a lot of that I want to do what makes it work for everybody. I want to make sure Beckett's happy, and I want to make sure that Presley has a reason to stay, and I want to make sure Ollie's fulfilled, and I want to make sure, Grayson isn't doing too much. And so I think she has that pressure, but she also has this piece of her that feels like she failed with her marriage and taking off on her family. Not that she did. I mean, she fell in love. She left the island. But she didn't make a good choice really for herself. I mean, she got Ollie out of it, so it was okay. But so I think she doesn't totally trust herself right now. And so when she comes back, she also doesn't want to let them know how badly she was hurt. Right? So when they see Levi and it all seems so easy and he's so easygoing, why don't you take that? Like, this is a great guy. This is a great guy. What is the problem? But she's scared. So I think there were all those different pieces, like you said, of real life, what it's like to be a mom, and try to balance those things. Or just I don't know, all women, but like you said, there's those elements there that are pretty consistent in trying to make it work for everyone around you, while still pulling in those little pieces of what you want.
And like you said, she didn't really make a great choice the first time, and so she's definitely nervous about that. She's not going to just jump into something. But what I think is really so lovely about Levi is that he comes along and he basically says, like, I see you. You're not alone. You don't have to carry everything on your own. And she's really felt like she has been for so long. And, I think, her journey is to come around to believe that for herself. But he's so my favorite trope is the cinnamon roll, like the green flag, the guy that is just there for you. That is just, he just shows up. And Levi does that, like, just in spades. Like, he is just the most, to me, it's just the most swoony kind of character, because he is just he's there for you no matter what. You. And, I think that it's really nice to see a character like Jilly, who has been sacrificing for everyone else, to have somebody who's like, nope, I'm there and I'm going to be there. And that, that's it.
Yeah. You can count on it. Yeah. Yeah. You can start assuming that I will be there. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
But he's not without flaws too, which I think is important, right? He's doing all the right things for Jilly, but it takes him some time to realize that, okay, maybe he didn't make all the right steps either. Right. So how do you make sure she sees that? Like, if his parents think, okay, you're just going to take off again, how does he make her see that's not who I am?
Right.
So,
yeah. So we mentioned that this is a second chance romance, and Levi is Jilly's first childhood crush who comes back to town. They're reunited after, I think it's about a decade. So I told you I wasn't going to ask any hard-hitting questions. Your family might be watching.
They're
so
busy. No, one's sick, the others are busy.
Do you have any idea where your childhood crush is? Are you Facebook friends? Did you Google them? Where are they now?
Here's a funny thing. I mean, I've definitely had crushes before him, but my husband is my 17-year-old, 18-year-old crush. I had a party for my 18th birthday so I could invite him. He worked with a bunch of our a bunch of mutual friends that we had at the gas station by my house. And he was like totally my crush. And he had a crush on my best friend. So he went out with her at my birthday party, which is fine because she's still my best friend. She lives like 6 minutes from me, and he's my husband. But yeah, he was like my first. I mean, actually, I did have a couple crushes before that. I had one when I was like 14, and I liked him so much. And he was like 7 years older than me, and I had fibbed and said I was older at the time. And so we were getting along really well, but he was also friends with my parents and stuff because he was like 21 at the time. And so when he realized, then he just treated me like a kid sister or whatever. But when I was 18, I actually got to go on a date with him, and it was awful. It was awful. No. I still really liked him, but we went on one date and it was fine. But then our next date, he brought another date with him for each of us. What? So it's like he had decided to set us both up with someone else. And I'm like, this is the most awkward thing ever. It was terrible. So
Did they think they were on a date together and then they ended up being on a date with each of you? Nope. Or they knew you were the only one that was in the dark?
So he invited me out, and he brought his friend who he had obviously told, hey, she'll be your date for the night. And then he brought a date. I was like, this is so not. But I have been married for 25 years this year to my husband. So that crush worked out pretty well.
Perfect. I love it. So what appeals to you about writing second chance romance? You are obviously in your first chance romance. What appeals to you about second chances?
I think that I love the idea that you can get it right. And even being in my first, real romance, my most serious relationship, there's lots of things that you do wrong. And there's this opportunity as you get older and you grow, whether you're having children or you're not, but just things that happen. I think things come full circle and you get this opportunity to be like, I'm going to handle myself differently this time. Right. And you're you're the same person in a sense. My mom used to always tell me when I was growing up, she's like, you'll see, it doesn't feel like I'm 40. It doesn't feel like I'm 50. And I'm like, okay, well, you act like you're 40 and 50. So, and here I am at, getting closer to 50. And I'm like, I don't feel like I am. So it just, I remember my oldest daughter is 22 and in love, and they're at that stage, and my husband and I had been living together at that time. So it's like, okay, it's this chance to how would you do it then? How would you approach it this time? What kind of grace can I show for this? Or what kind of, how am I responding to this? I love the idea that you don't only get one chance to get it right.
Yeah.
So, and honestly, I think when I think second chance, I think that can be with the same person, whether it's, a couple who's like reviving their marriage, or someone who's starting fresh, or someone who, is on their second marriage or whatever, right? Like, I like that idea that you get more than one chance to find happiness, even if it's with the same person.
Right. And you get more than one chance to be who you want to be and to sort of evolve into who you really are.
Yeah. And who you are with that person too, right? Like Levi and Jilly are not the same people they were, but there's elements of who they were enough that it keeps that nostalgia tight, but it also gives them the opportunity to be like, hey, this is who I am now. Right. So I know you have a fondness for me because you remember all these little cute things from when we were younger, but now this is who I am. And so to have that kind of layering of care for who she was then, who he was then, and who they are now, I think is really special. And second chance makes it easier to do that.
It's sort of that mix of like history, but rediscovery and learning about each other again.
Yeah.
So this book is set at the Get Lost Lodge, which is sort of an outdoor paradise. Jilly's family is quite outdoorsy. The books in the series feature things like kayaking, and one brother owns a bike shop, and There are funny hiking scenes. So are you outdoorsy? Do you relate more to the person that's like spearheading the hike, or the one limping along with sore feet, or the one that's like, I'm going in the hot tub and I am not going on the hike at all?
Yeah, I'm basically like, I'm only hiking if there's like a murderer after me and I'm trying to hide or something. And even then, I don't know what I was doing out there in the first place. I grew up camping. I grew up riding a motorcycle. I grew up, you know, it's so weird, but now I would not camp for anything. If we're staying at a 3-star motel, I'm like, okay, I won't bring any of my good stuff. Like, I'm not. I am not a roughing it outdoorsy kind of person. I do love to kayak. I do love to paddleboard. I love being in the water. I don't necessarily love sitting on the beach, but I love walking on the beach. I love, you know, our friends camp and they're like, oh, you won't camp. It's no fun. And I'm like, I will come up and spend the day with you. I would love to come up and, you know, do whatever and have roasted hot dogs and sit by the water, and then I'm going to come home. Yeah. Then I'm going to come home and I'm going to shower that smell out of my hair, and I'm going to make sure there's no bugs on me, and I'm going to crawl into my bed and it's going to be warm. Right. So yeah, that's who I am. Yeah. I'm not outdoorsy.
So was this sort of inspired by your childhood of outdoorsiness? What kind of inspired you to put it in this setting?
It's so funny because a lot of my books are built around one tiny idea, and then it becomes a series. So it's quite, you know, I always envy authors that are like, well, no, then I layer this in, and then I think about, okay, what themes do I want to pull in and what elements do I want? I'm like, I write stuff and then I'm like, oh, look, that's in it and that's in it, and maybe I got a little bit of that. When I did this series, when I started with Beckett and Presley, I just had an idea of a girl who bought her boyfriend a trip somewhere she'd never want to go, and they break up before she takes it. And I was like, okay, so that was my core idea. And then I was like, where would she never want to go? I'm like, well, I would not want to go to a rundown fishing lodge. Right. So then it became that. Right. And then that's where the story kind of got built from. Now I actually live in like the camping and swimming and hiking capital of like Canada. It's crazy. We live in a place that is very outdoorsy. And again, I love going for a walk and stuff. I prefer it wasn't on an incline. But yeah,
downhill is best.
Yeah, downhill can be hard too. I have fallen downhill many times. But no, so it's certainly, I definitely have the inspiration for it all around me. Definitely with the hiking trails and things like that. And we have friends that hike. And, so I have all of that exposure to those things. I just don't actually do it. My daughter loves to hike. My best friend's husband just started a hiking club, like joining the hiking club. And it's a very outdoorsy place where we live. So.
Nice. Well, hopefully, you know, you can get out there and then go home and sleep in your bed at the end of the day.
Lots to draw from before I come home and lock all the bugs out.
Right. Do your research and then sleep in your own
exactly.
bed. Yeah. So let's just talk in general, kind of a little bit about, there are things that I personally want to know about you.
Okay.
So you and I met when I was, we were talking about this earlier in the green room, when I was a brand new, unagented, unpublished writer who had entered a pitch contest. And we were paired up with you as my mentor. And you helped me sort of like hone my pitch and my first pages of my very first novel. So I get a little choked up thinking about being here, because it means so much to me to get to be here and to support you. If you had told me 7 years ago when you were my mentor that I would get to be in a conversation with you like this, I would have been like beyond. So I'm wondering, have you had a moment like that? Was there sort of an interaction with another author, something that was special or significant or even like full circle for you?
It's such a weird thing, right? And it's funny because when the pitch contest happened, I can remember getting the email from Amy and being like, does she know what she's asking me to mentor someone else? Like she wants me to help someone. I was like, okay, sure, if you think I can. So for me, it was like such an honor to be allowed to do that. And it's a really nerve-wracking thing too, right? Because when you write, you just think about, okay, I'm going to write my book. You don't think about, I don't, you might read a craft book, but when you're writing, you're not like, okay, they suggested that I pull this scene in. So to offer someone advice on their writing, it's also a bit daunting, right? And it can be hard on connections to be like, okay, well, I feel like you could have said this. And some people will respond favorably and some won't. So it's a tricky thing there. And I was very happy to be able to do that. And I think we actually did it more than once. And that was like my first chance to kind of give back what, I feel like a lot of authors have given to me. I feel very lucky and blessed. And I said to you in the chat before, I feel so much gratitude towards the authors that I have been brave enough, because it's really hard no matter how many books you've written. I have not met an author yet who has said, oh yeah, it's easy, I just asked them for a blurb. It is so hard to reach out to people, no matter what stage of your career you are at. And so I was brave enough to do that with others. And when it was met with kindness and grace, I always said, it's not like, I'm not going to buy them a box of chocolates. I don't know where they are, and, things like that. So you give back by doing this. And I would say even now, I mean, El Cosimano has been just, okay, first of all, it's El Cosimano. So it's like, she's amazing. And I reached out on something, and just that kindness, it just means so much. And so that's what I think the most amazing piece of writing, being a writer and being in this community is I know exactly how you felt when I said yes to helping you, and, the things along the way, because I still get that. I still reach out. And Jennifer Probst was another one, right? Like Jennifer Probst was one of the first people to ever follow me on Twitter. And I just thought I think she's wonderful. And we actually got to go down to Seattle and meet her. And my daughter got to meet her. And she talked to us about writing, and she was so approachable. And I was like, that's how I want others to feel. As an author, you want people to feel a certain way when they read your books. You want them to have those moments where their heart just kind of swoons. But I think as a human, I also want that as well. I want people to be like, yeah, you can reach out and ask. And because that's what I've received from other people, so many. And I feel very grateful for that.
It's amazing how something so small to you, like, oh, I followed them back on Twitter, can mean so much to somebody else. And you just actually have no idea, or they have no idea, like that was such a pivotal moment for you.
It was. Yeah, I was like, that is a real author following me, like she's written books. Like she is like legit.
She has her name on books in bookstores.
Yeah, she followed me on purpose, even though there's nothing in my bio, right? This is like 12 years ago. I was like, the only thing I had written was my Twitter bio. Like that is
right.
So it's a big deal. And I might be different, but you probably say the same thing. It never really stops being a big deal. Like it never stops being a big deal that, last year I said, I love Alexa Martin, and I had followed her, and I had commented on posts, and then I feel like a little stalker or whatever. And then I had mentioned something, I don't know, in a DM or something. And then she's like, oh my God, I didn't realize that I followed you. And I'm like, oh my God, you're talking to me. She's like, I'm not cool enough for you to feel this way. I'm like, yes, you are. It just, I think because we go into this because we love books so much and we love authors so much that it never stops being a big deal when they give back, which is why I try really hard to reply to every DM, every comment, everything, because it makes your day sometimes, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like you said, yeah, Yeah, I get all choked up about it when I think about it. Like, like publishing is such a mystery, and we think that we're kind of sitting there alone, like writing these books, and like just having no idea, is this good? Is this terrible? Am I doing the right thing? And so just that little connection from somebody who you feel like you're not alone, or you feel like, especially if it's somebody who has accomplished something that you're hoping to accomplish, it makes you feel like it's attainable, like, that there is that possibility.
Yeah. And that's always when people ask, what's your advice? It's like, reach out, because if you're reaching out to somebody, and honestly, I think you can tell, just like you can in real life, you can tell if someone's being genuine, right? So if someone reaches out and said, I love your books, I want to write so much, and I just don't know where to start, I can take 45 seconds and tell you how I started. And I haven't ever been on the bad end of that either, right? It's like, how'd you get them to mention your book? Oh, I did this. It's like, we do feel like there's a lot of secrecy around it, I think, and lots of things that, like I said, we said this earlier, I didn't know what things actually meant. I didn't know you were supposed to have people read your work before you sent it to someone to read your work.
Right.
So being able to do those things, I think, is really, really valuable. And I think it's one of my favorite parts of this, is getting to connect with other authors. For one thing, today is my 36th book that I have actually published.
Oh my gosh,
and
congratulations. That's amazing.
And they asked me to teach writing at school. I'm like, no, why would I teach it?
I'm not an expert.
Right? I just write. I don't teach it. I write. But so, it's validating on both sides. And I learned from you, right? Like brainstorming with someone else is one of the best ways to get ideas. And I don't mean you're taking their ideas, but it takes the pressure off what you're maybe stuck on, and you're helping them. And it kind of just, oh yeah, I can do this. I might be stuck on my own work, but right now I'm like helping you untangle that knot, which means later I can do it, or I can ask someone else for help, right? Because you're not looking at my knot the same way as yours. So it's a little easier to untangle someone else's.
Right. And you kind of learn your own process from doing that with someone else.
Yeah. Yeah. And you realize that there's so many different ones.
So we have some questions coming in from the chat. So I want to make sure that we get to some of those. So is there a trope that you haven't written that you would like to write?
I don't know if it's I know it's the secret baby trope, and I don't want the baby to be a secret. I want to write the pregnancy trope, the baby, like, we were not going to be anything, but now, we have a kid, but we're going to have a kid. And so are we staying together, or are we trying together because we're having a kid, or are we like falling in love with each other? So I would like to do that. And I would love to do marriage at convenience.
Oh, so what appeals to you about either one of those? You can pick one.
Well, I think because I really like to lock things down. If you're going to have a kid together, you're pretty much locked together for a while. He's not going anywhere. I love that. And the marriage at convenience, I don't even know if I could write it. I just love that idea that usually when I've read it, it's like one of them's already like at least 1 foot in, right? So it's almost like a friend still sort of thing, even if it isn't, right? It's like, I'm forcing myself into this relationship, but really you're the person I was meant to be with. And I love that idea.
Right. Like you wouldn't do that if there wasn't something, already a spark there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems like there's outside sources forcing this on us, but really I'm not all that mad about it.
Right.
So I like that. Yeah.
So is there a genre that you'd love to write in that you haven't? I know that you write under several pen names. And so you write romance.
Sophie is my pen name. So my name.
Yeah. So I just write under, So Sophie Sullivan, I do my rom-coms, and under Jody, I do my cozy mysteries. And I just released a book in which you were lovely enough to read, All the Other Me. And so when you talk about genres, that was such a weird book for me to write because we didn't really have a genre for it. It definitely has romance in it and had a little bit of magical realism, I guess, in that honestly, it was more like a suspension of belief.
so yeah, so I got to kind of do that, and that was really cool. Romance is definitely my preferred genre, and it would be followed by cozy mystery that's heavy on the romance.
So is there anything that you've ever thought, oh, I'd love to write something completely, I mean, it sounds like the Slightly Magical book was a little out of the box for you, but is there anything, have you ever thought about writing something like really out of the box? Or do you ever see yourself doing that?
No, I can't write horror because I would scare myself. And I can't really write thriller for the same reason. I'm not gonna, I'm not the person that's gonna like really scare you. And I can't write anything that doesn't end happily. So it can't be, it has to be, I mean, I could do a women's fiction, but it would be that kind of women's fiction where it's all going to be okay. I would love to write a picture book.
Wow.
That's how I started in this industry, and it never went anywhere, but it's how I got my first agent. It's how I started learning the industry. I would love to write a picture book one day.
That was not something I was expecting you to say.
Yeah. I've written several. I've just never published them, but yeah, that's how I started.
Well, I can't wait to read your picture book. I feel like after 36 books published, if you want to write a picture book and publish it someday, you will absolutely do it.
I hope so. That would be, I think that would be really, really wonderful. Even as a middle school teacher, I've always loved picture books, and I just think there's so much power in their ability to share a story in so few pages, where it's like takes me 350 pages to get that memo across, right? So yeah, and theirs are 25. So
okay, so there's one more question in the chat. What is the swooniest thing a hero can do, both in real life and in books?
I think I'll probably think about this later and change my mind, but I think it is anticipating what the person needs, whether it's an emotional thing, a physical thing, like, my husband will often, like I'm doing something, I'm writing, and he'll just like freshen up my water. Or, a hero on the page is like, she's getting all amped up and stuff, and he just pulls her into a hug. So I think those things where the person well enough to anticipate their needs and show it, I think is really lovely. What about you? What do you think's the swooniest?
I was actually going to say something really similar. I think noticing something about me or my needs and meeting them without having to be asked is both in real life and in books my absolute favorite swooniest thing.
Because they see you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Which I think is special. Yeah.
So here's a question that I actually had on my list that I didn't get to, but I'm glad somebody else asked it. How do you manage? So you've written 36 books. You are a middle school teacher, which is not an easy job. That is like the hardest
not an easy job. Oh my gosh. Their little brains are.
So how do you manage to, like, I feel like you're sort of like author goals for so many writers. Like, how do you have it all? How do you do it all?
I cry a lot.
Yeah.
So I drink a lot of Diet Pepsi. I don't sleep well. I've always had a really supportive, my core family in my home. I mean, my oldest daughter is a writer, as some of you may know. She published her first book last year, The Last Love Song by Kaylee Holford. She was a really easy one to convince. I would just sit her down beside me from the time she was little, and you write your stories too. The younger one was not quite as easy, but I could cook with her and keep her busy. My husband's always been really supportive. So I've always had that ability. And then, of course, the older they get, the easier it was to do. And now I have tons of, time on my hands. I mean, I go to work and that's my job, but I've been doing my teaching job for 25 years. It's hard and it's often exhausting, but I could go in tomorrow and not have a plan and be able to pull out a lesson. I've been doing it a really long time. We'll do something with vocabulary or whatever, right? So I'm not a new teacher. I wasn't writing full-time like this when I was a new teacher and having to lesson plan. Now I put, one note in my day plan. It's like, okay, I'll do that. So I think that makes it a little bit easier. My kids have gotten older, so that makes it a little bit easier. And it's what I do when, my husband goes and works out on the treadmill. Like, instead of people go to the gym, I do go to Pilates now and stuff, but for a long time I didn't. But, other people, I don't know, you go to Pilates, or you go to yoga, or you go hiking, or you go swimming twice a week. I went to my computer and I wrote. I stopped baking. I loved to bake, but I stopped baking and I did this and taught my daughter to bake so that she could bake cookies while I do this. And so,
Very smart.
Yeah, you make time for the things that truly matter to you. And sometimes I think it's easier that I am this busy, because it keeps me, I don't really have time to stop and be like, oh my God, I'm so tired, I'm so busy. I mean, I do, but it's also the next book has to come, and I want to do this so badly. And that's what surprises me even now, this many books in. It's getting busier, it's getting harder, especially with all the promoting you have to do and the things like that, the parts that I'm not good at. I still want to share my story so much. So I find a way, right?
So 36 books in, you still love it like as much as you did in the beginning.
It still shocks me that people read my books. It just
Wow.
absolutely thrills me. Like, I went on today, and it's so funny because I have really bad social anxiety. I opened my apps this morning. It was 7:00. It said 100 notifications. I immediately closed it and put it away. I'm like, I can't. I'm like, how do you and I mean, I hope that means I'm doing it well and I'm doing it right, whatever that may look like. But it just amazes me, like you said, about, if you'd look 7 years from now, when I wrote my first book, or when I went from picture books to romance, and my editor told me, you can't write romance. This is not your forte. I signed you for picture books. If that's not what you're doing, you're gone. Right? That was my first agent. And so it just, when you love something like that, you find a way to make it work, and it just never stops being thrilling. So.
Yeah. And when it's such like a dream for you, like a dream job, like it's so hard to be published. It's so hard to write a book.
So
First of
hard.
all, it's so hard to get published.
Yep.
And the fact that you get to do this, at least for me,
that is exactly what I say. I get to do this, right? So even in my most overwhelmed moments where there's a 10-page edit letter and nobody liked this part of the book and everybody thought this was dumb and it's my fault, the cover, mind you, none of those things are true because my cover is awesome. And people do like the book. But when that happens and I'm feeling overwhelmed, I try really hard to say, okay, I have a whole bunch of edits to do, but I get to do this.
You get to
right?
do the edits.
I get to do this. And then someone's going to read it. Right? So pretty cool thing.
And then you get those notifications because people are talking about it and reaching out and telling you that they love it. And that really is the best part.
That's just unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
Right? When someone tells you they connect with your characters, it's the same as saying, I connect with you. Because those characters, even if they're not like me, are part of who you are, right?
Yeah. No, and you put so much into them. Sometimes it feels like they're more you, that they're the you that you're sort of putting out into the world to be sort of judged and critiqued and all of these things. And so when somebody connects with them, it's it means that you did your job.
Yeah. Got a few more there. How do you manage? We did that one. There was also, what's your favorite rom-com? The Proposal, 2 Weeks Notice, and Definitely Maybe.
Oh, okay. So mine are, this is hard. I can picture them. Notting Hill. While You Were Sleeping.
Oh, I love that one.
Yeah, that to me, that is a Christmas movie. And it's my favorite Christmas movie.
Yep.
And probably, When Harry Met Sally will always be like the ultimate classic. Like, to me, that is like the rom-com.
A Guide for Being Just Friends got compared to that in one of the BuzzFeed things. And I was like, that's it. I quit. I'm done. Look what I did. I was so happy.
Oh my God. I could see that though. That actually has that same vibe.
I love that movie. It was fantastic. What
So what are you reading right now? Or what have you read lately that you loved?
I am reading. I just finished a middle grade Jason Reynolds book, When I Was the Greatest. I am like a little bit in love with Jason Reynolds. If I want to calm down at work, I just put his voice on because he's just got the best voice. So I just finished that. He's an amazing writer. I love his stuff. And then of course it's Black History Month, so I'm trying to, not that you should just read, books by Black authors in February, but trying really hard to make sure that I incorporate diversity into what I'm reading. And so I picked up Nikki Payne's book, Sex, Lies, and Sensibility. It's really good. It's really, really good. So I did a little event with her once, and her book sounded so good, and it's just as good as it sounded like it was. So
I have read Pride and Protest.
Okay, yeah.
But not that one.
Yeah.
So I will
I haven't read the other one, but this one is really good. It's very, very good. So
nice.
Yeah. How about you? What are you reading?
So I've actually been reading a couple of arcs that for people that have asked me to blurb. I've had the chance to read a lot of magical books lately, which is so fun because I've written two magical books in the last couple of years. So I'm trying to think. There was one that I really loved. I'm so bad at this, and I should have written it down before I came here. It is called it's by Lisa Cross Smith, and I feel awful. As You Wish.
Okay.
That I just yes, and so it's kind of a found family. It's about three friends that are au pairs in Korea, in Seoul, and they work for these three families that are like all kind of friends, and so they become friends, and it has found family. It has a little bit of magical wishes. I think it comes out in a couple months, maybe in June, but I highly recommend it. It was just one that I just was I had so much fun with it. And it was lovely to read about the culture and the food, and it just had everything. So yeah,
when you really fall into another world, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I really recommend that one. That's one that I just finished recently.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So let's see if there are any last minute questions. Oh, here comes Stephanie.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I know that you don't get to see faces when you guys are talking, but I feel very confident in saying that all of us watching have been smiling because I was having the best time.
Good.
That I started talking to my computer like we were having a conversation, as if I could join in. Most recently, we're like while you were sleeping, and I was like, "Oh my God, yes, we can't forget that one." So good.
The movie is so good.
It's so good. We were also just talking. So last night we had an author event with a couple authors in town, but one of them is BK Borison, who is also celebrating a pub day today. And that book is based off, it's First Time Caller, and it's based kind of loosely on Sleepless in Seattle. And we were like debriefing how well Sleepless in Seattle holds up in the modern day, which we were like lovingly using the word fixation instead of stalker.
That's okay.
So you guys were amazing.
Thank you.
Sophie, we're so excited for you. I hope you're having the best launch day.
I am. I'm so happy I got to spend it with you guys. So thank you for this.
We absolutely love it. Your book came just in time for Valentine's Day, so everybody can celebrate.
I'm so excited.
And Melissa, you were such an incredible conversation partner. I could have listened to both of you talk forever. So
it was very
Thank
fun.
you so much for having me. It was so fun.
And for anybody watching, if you haven't gotten your copy, we would love to get a copy of the book to you. We are in St. Louis, but we do ship. So if you need the hookup, we got it. So hopefully we get to do this again. And hopefully at some point we're able to welcome Sophie to St. Louis. I know that's a goal.
Thanks September. Yeah.
So hopefully that'll work out. But Sophie, Melissa, thank you so much.
Thank you again.
Everybody watching. We hope everyone has.
Yes, thank you very much. I wish I could see everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.